The religious love to think that they're destroying atheism, but atheists are just pointing and laughing in their faces. They are doing absolutely nothing of the sort. They're just proving what a bunch of gullible buffoons they are. Not that that's any surprise. So let's go watch another example coming up next. This video comes from Biblical Studies and Reviews, hosted by Stephen Hackett. It starts out weak, I admit, but when it really starts going, it's just a litany of bad ideas, irrational beliefs, and really terrible reasons to believe. Big surprise there, I know. But this is why the religious have such problems coming to grips with reality. They don't wanna. They are terrified of it. They don't understand what it is that they're doing wrong or why they're doing it, and that's kind of a problem, isn't it? So let's start a multi-part look at why this in no way proves that Christianity is true, and certainly it does absolutely nothing whatsoever to destroy atheism. It just makes them look terrible. And what else is new?
I want to do something today that very few Christian thinkers, philosophers, apologists have done.
Oh, I bet just tons have done it, because there is nothing new under the sun in Christian apologetics. And that goes for all religions, but Christianity is kind of boring. And that doesn't mean we can't look at it as a different take, and remember, I've got no clue what he's about to suggest, but for a video called Christianity is True, and a thumbnail that says Atheism Destroyed, I figure there can't be too many alternatives. Still, perfectly willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and see what he's got, but come on, are we really expecting that much? I'd love to be surprised though, so please, good sir, tell us what you're up to.
That is, I want to make an offer to you. I want to offer you an opportunity to have a Zoom call with me. At the end of this video, I'll give you an opportunity, or at least I'll give you my contact information, and you can reach out to me. And if you're a seeker or someone who's interested in Christianity and is finding that you're having some sort of barrier to coming to Christ, I want to have a conversation with you. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm not here to fight with you. If you're out to just try to, prove your point.
So, you just want to talk to gullible fools who really want to believe. Yeah, okay, hard pass. And no, this isn't original either, because I have seen plenty of theists saying, I want to talk to you. I've even seen quite a few of them who actively want to talk to atheists, at least until the atheists actually show up, and then they just head for the hills. I'll give him credit for at least making the effort. That at least takes some guts, but that's not really what we're here for, is it? He says Christianity is true, and atheism somehow gets destroyed. Let's see your evidence for either of those claims. I'm willing to bet neither are going to be that impressive, but hey, let's see. Oh, and he says in his comments that he allows most comments that don't include swearing. So maybe that's another good sign. I don't know. We catch a ton of them just deleting everybody who disagrees or makes them look bad, so I don't know. If anybody wants to go through the comments and tell me if there's anything there worthwhile, okay, go ahead and do that. So far, so good. Get to your points.
This call's probably not for you, but if you're a genuine seeker or someone who's interested in Christianity, reach out to me. I want to make time to talk to you about this great gospel and give you an opportunity to hear what Christ is offering you.
All right, I'm going to just fast forward to something worthwhile because this isn't it. Again, though, he doesn't want to talk to anyone that he has to defend himself with, and I find that interesting. He's just looking for the easy targets and not the ones that could ask any of the difficult questions that he has no answers for or would ask for any kind of demonstrable evidence. So I guess I won't be calling, Not that I had any interest to begin with. He's after ignorance and gullibility, and that certainly isn't me. So anyhow, we'll see how much fast forwarding I have to put in before he tries to prove anything, and I'm hoping it won't be that long.
And so most of the people who watch this video are long-time viewers. If you're watching this video, you know by now, these guys are always asking you to do certain things, or hit the like button. There's nothing wrong with it. If friends do that, that's fine. But that's not really my style. But I'm asking you on this video, if you do know someone who would like to hear more about the gospel, I want to help. Let's partner together. Share this video. Share this video with your friends or someone who's seeking, so that we can partner together to help reach people for Christ.
No thanks. Of course, if he could just demonstrate that Christianity was true with objective evidence to back it up, that would go a long way toward bringing people to Christ, wouldn't it? Instead, he makes these bombastic, unsupported and unsupportable claims, and then he pretends that he wants to save people's souls without showing that souls are even a thing in the first place, and that shouldn't impress anyone. Now, I did kind of peek forward a little bit, sue me, just to make sure he wasn't going to spend the entire video asking for people to call him, and he doesn't, so that's a good thing. Normally I don't do that, but the first minute and a half of this video was just him begging for attention, and that's not impressive, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't wasting my time, and certainly I didn't want to waste yours. But he does get somewhere eventually, and honestly, I didn't even pay attention to what he was saying. I mean, not really. So we're really going to just experience the apologetics together when it comes. I just like being upfront with people, so let's get back to his presentation, already in progress.
Now, I'm going to launch right in now and offer you my reasons for why I'm a Christian. Today I have nothing to sell you. There's no affiliate links. I've turned off ads on this video. This is all about trying to reach people for Christ and tell them why Christianity makes sense.
Except it doesn't. Yes, we'll get there, but I have no ads ever, at least not that I signed up for. I can't really control what YouTube does on its own. I have no idea what they're doing because I'm using an ad blocker, and I recommend everybody else does too. But if they're doing stuff without my consent, okay, I can't control that. And I'm also never going to try to sell anything. I have no merch. I'm not trying to sell t-shirts. I don't sell anything. Hell, I don't even push my Patreon because I'm not trying to make money at all. Hardly anybody ever uses my Patreon anyhow. I appreciate the people who do, but nobody has bought me a coffee in over a year, which is, well, whatever. It just shows how little I have my hand out, yet here I am consistently putting out content for people to consume, and I ask nothing from anyone. If you want to, great, that's appreciated. If not, no harm, no foul. I'm not pretending that I'm not going to eat without your help. I'm fine, don't worry. Then again, I don't pretend that I have a magical man in the sky that cares about what I'm doing and wants to take care of me. Yet, the people who believe that, or claim to believe that, those are the people who always want money, right? What's God doing here? Not a whole lot, apparently, so let's get back to his reasons and see if they're worthwhile.
Now, for me, as C.S. Lewis said, I believe in Christianity as I believe that the sun has risen, not only because I see it.
I'm going to stop you right there. How do you see it? Because that's a knowledge claim, and knowledge claims require evidence. How exactly do you see it? What evidence can you present that any of it ever happened at all? I'm willing to bet there's absolutely nothing there. Nothing but faith. This is why you have to ask these people a whole lot of questions, because they don't tend to have much, if anything, intelligent to say. It's why the religious model is generally top-down. Some guy preaching for an extended period of time, telling you what he thinks, not a back-and-forth conversation where there's a lot of give and take and a lot of information being freely exchanged. That's one reason I'm very, very active in my comments, and if this video is anything to go by, this guy isn't. There are very few comments that he's actually responded to, and the ones that he has, at least the ones that I looked at, it's all just Thanks for commenting. But he doesn't actually address any of his detractors, whereas I do. Every single one of them. The videos are kind of an open door to invite conversations, and the religious, they don't tend to do that very much, do they? But I'll shut up right now and let him continue, although you can expect me to break in quite a bit.
But because by it, I see everything else. That's a perfect summary for me of why I believe Christianity.
And that makes no sense at all. I'm not trying to read into things, although that's sometimes hard to do given how much experience I have with the religious. I wouldn't say if there were lots of different takes on the same material, but there really isn't. It's always fifis and faith, just as I'm sure this is going to turn into coming up. It's why he doesn't want to really talk to us. He said as much earlier, and his behavior in his comments proves it. He's only looking for the gullible suckers who will buy into this stuff emotionally without having any difficult questions and without expecting him to back anything up objectively. And I'm sorry, but that's not us. That shouldn't be anyone. He's looking for the rubes, which is defined as a naive or inexperienced person who is easy to manipulate. They want nothing at all to do with people who actually understand the situation, often a whole lot better than they do. It makes it really hard to lie to them, and I know that's unfair to this guy because we know next to nothing about him, but we catch the apologist in lies constantly, so it's really hard not to make that comparison. These are people who don't have solid answers to difficult questions. They just really want to believe, but really wanting to believe is just not enough.
I grew up in a Christian home, and my parents raised me to believe in the Lord.
And therefore, he was brainwashed before the age of reason, and it's really hard to get that mental poison out of your system once it's firmly entrenched. This is why childhood indoctrination is so insidious, and this is why the religious all practice it. People aren't even aware of how scarred they've been by well-meaning parents and clergy, although I'm sure some of the clergy are very well aware, which is why they push it. They know they've got to get the kids when they're young and stupid to have any chance to make money off them later on in life. It might sound hypercritical, but I think it's actually true.
And I trusted in him, and I found that the claims that he made in Scripture were true for me.
There is no true for you. There is only true. Truth exists for everyone. This is the postmodernist bullshit that idiots like Oprah fell for. The force of gravity is the same for everyone. You don't have your own reality. You don't just get to pick and choose what's true for you. If you think that, then you are an idiot. And that's the sad part, because there are an awful lot of idiots out there. People who desperately want some things to be true, even if they're not, and conversely, some things to be false, even though they're not, so they just play make-believe because they really want the world to be what they want the world to be. But that doesn't make it true, does it? A lot of these people are theists, as if that's any surprise, because they care more about their feelings than they do about the facts. Then they just get on YouTube and show the world what a bunch of clueless morons they are, which is also not a surprise. Now, they're not all religious. There are non-religious people who do the exact same thing. I'm not criticizing them alone, but that's kind of the focus of the channel, so that's where we're going. So let's just keep that in mind. So anyway, nothing is true for you. It's true or it's not true. Stop being an idiot.
But as I got older, I wanted to explore, do I just believe this because my parents taught it to me? Is it really true? So I began to listen to some of the most articulate atheistic thinkers of our time.
And that's your mistake right there, or one of them anyhow. Not that listening to other people is bad, but if that's all you're doing, then you're not learning anything. I don't want people to just listen to me and just blindly believe whatever it is I'm saying. Don't do that. I'm human. I make mistakes. Go out and do your own research. Learn what the actual facts are, and then compare those to the things that you believe. If your beliefs fall apart at the sight of actual reality, then your beliefs are wrong, no matter how they make you feel. The facts outweigh your emotions 100% of the time. Now, he was talking about listening to atheists, and I just cut him off, so let's be fair and get back to that.
And they began to pose these questions. I went back and forth, but it came down to me. Number one, it seemed true to me.
So you're an idiot, because how it seems to you is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what seems true, it matters what is true. If I had given up the search and gone with what seemed true, because I'd been programmed that way nearly from birth, then I'd probably still be religious today. The religious don't want you thinking on your own. They don't want you to verify their claims. They don't want you to ask any questions. They just want you to believe, just like they do. Reality doesn't change because it seems to me. It is what it is, and if you think otherwise, then you are the one in the wrong. But I think he had another point, so let's go listen to that.
Everything in my experience seemed to ring true, but also it made sense of so much in the world. That is, for example, my moral experience.
He's still doing the same thing though, right? It feels good. Who cares? This is what happens when you start out with preconceptions that are not justifiable in reality. This is why so many of the theists we look at wind up looking so dumb. They are starting with bad ideas and only building on those. But it says so in the Bible. So what? You haven't justified the Bible. You haven't provided any independent evidence that what it says in the Bible is true. And by that, I mean your specific supernatural claims. Just because you really like it, that doesn't make it true. It's only true if it's true. And they can't get beyond that because they've been brainwashed. Don't ask questions and don't doubt, or God is gonna get ya. Yet you have no credible reason to believe that God is real to begin with. This is the mind poison that festers in the brains of the religious. It's how the religious keep them obedient. It makes them too scared to do anything else. It makes them do what this guy did. It keeps them inside the faith because they're too terrified to look outside. Anyhow, he was about to say something about morality, and since that's one of my personal favorite topics, let's go see what he has to say.
If everything were reduced down to just matter and motion, which is essentially what most atheists do. Now, I realize that atheism is a label for just someone who doesn't believe God, but I don't know any atheist, I've never met an atheist who would affirm other supernatural entities outside of God. Most of them are naturalist or materialist.
Because that's the only thing that we actually have any evidence for. It's not a statement of faith, it's a statement of fact. If you could produce demonstrable, testable evidence for the supernatural, or whatever it is you want to claim is out there, then we would believe it. Or at least I would. I couldn't speak for anybody else. The problem is you can't do that, and because you can't do that, I'm going where the evidence leads. And it doesn't lead to your side. There's a fundamental difference between the way that you're looking at things, which is through your emotions, and the way that I'm looking at them, which is through the demonstrable facts. I don't care about your wishes and dreams. I care only about what you can prove is true.
But what it came down to me is so much of our experience on an atheistic worldview just becomes an illusion.
That is not remotely true. Here's a rock. It's in my hand. Is this an illusion? I can bash you in the head with it. Does it feel like an illusion to you? The problem here, and I think this is where he's headed, and we'll see in a minute, but he has his illusions that he's really emotionally attached to, and then he just projects his delusions onto everybody else because he really wants everyone else to be just like he is. He is not remotely the first theist that I've ever heard say this, but when I asked them what from my worldview is an illusion, they just change the subject. They have nothing of any substance to say. That, or they just go on to describe their own illusions and get upset when I don't share them. So I guess our problem is that we're not the overly emotional gits that they are. I don't know.
For example, my moral experience. It seems to me that there are things that are really right and really wrong.
No, you've been indoctrinated into believing that. You don't understand how human societies actually work. You've just been lied to your entire life. If you are told the same lie over and over and over enough, you start to believe that it's true. But that doesn't mean that it's true. This is especially obvious in people who move to significantly different cultures. Initially, they have serious problems adapting because they've been programmed to think that one culture, a different culture, is correct, that their moral and social views are absolutely true, and that often gets them into trouble with the new culture. Now, assuming that the new culture doesn't just kill them outright or put them in prison or throw them out or whatever, because we all know that happens, over time they do adapt to take the views of the new culture internally. It's easier to just adapt and adopt that which surrounds you than it is to fight back against it, because that gets you into trouble. Often, over time, these people will start to hate their former culture because it now doesn't agree with their obviously superior and definitely true new culture, because that's what surrounds them on a daily basis. We see this very clearly today. For example, you get people who come from a very strongly Muslim culture, and then they go to another country where Islam, especially fundamentalist Islam, is hardly a thing, and they've got a really, really hard time fitting in. It was acceptable where they came from to go out and rape women who weren't covered up, so they go and do that, and they get in trouble, as they should according to the rules of the new culture, because this is really old culture versus new culture. Eventually, most adapt, and the ones that don't really pay the price, but it can take many years, and if you screw up your life in the meantime, bad stuff happens. This dude came from a strong Christian perspective, and he can't figure out why he sees things that way. These people are really clueless about how reality works, and I find that terribly sad.
Even many atheists want to affirm that there's some things that are right and wrong.
There's a difference, though. Yes, I am only speaking for myself, but I find this to be generally true. You can correct me in the comments if you think it's different. Atheists, and remember I'm generalizing here, but they will accept societal declarations of right and wrong. Murder is wrong from the perspective of the culture in which they live. If you go to a deserted island, murder is no longer wrong. I mean, you might carry that belief with you, but there's nobody there to enforce it, and there's nobody there to murder, so it doesn't really matter, does it? If there's nobody there but you couldn't murder anybody if you tried, because there's nobody else there to murder. Therefore, the idea that murder is wrong is entirely irrelevant. So when we say it, or when I say it, we're doing so subjectively. Morals are subjective. When you say it, I assume you're pretending it's objective, which it simply isn't. It's just an emotional reaction. You just want it to be true, but that doesn't mean anything. This is just your religious mind poison clogging up your brain, and it's not just religion that can do that. Basic enculturation can do it too. Lots of people believe that because it's in the law, therefore it's objectively wrong, because they've been told since childhood that it's wrong because it's wrong. Well, it's just got to be true because there it is. And those people are idiots. They really are. That is not how any of this works.
My moral experience tells me that there is a moral law, and a moral law would imply a moral lawgiver.
That's the lie that you've had your head filled with. If you've never been told that, if you'd been raised non-religious, you wouldn't believe that. You might believe other things I really couldn't say, but you probably wouldn't believe that. However, you are just asserting that because this is how you were raised, that it must be automatically true, and therefore you just can't change your mind. And that's just ludicrous. You aren't concerned with reality. You don't understand what has been done to you. A lot of people don't, and even if it's explained to them, a lot of people will still refuse to acknowledge it because it's emotionally uncomfortable. You need to be able to set your emotions aside and deal with the demonstrable facts, and sadly, a lot of people can't. That's a you problem, not an us problem. You really need to grow up.
And so when an atheist wants to say that it's wrong, for example, for a Christian to impose his beliefs on atheists, well, he's making a moral judgment.
No, he's not. He's telling you to keep your stupid bullshit to yourself. There are things that we as humans, as societies, agree with fundamentally because they work within the societies that we live in. We agree that there's a speed limit, just to keep this as generic as I can. We might not agree on what it should be, but once it's encoded into the law, once everybody's been following it for a long time, it is what it is, and the police can pull us over and give us a ticket for exceeding it. We will start to think this is the proper speed limit. There is no such thing in objective reality. By the very fact that we live within that society, we are held accountable to that law, whether we like it or not. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. That's a problem for some people like the idiot sovereign citizens who say, well, if I don't consent to the law, then it doesn't affect me. Yeah, how's that working out for you? That is not how human societies actually work. Theists are trying to do the exact same thing, imposing their own made-up rules on others because it makes them happy to do so. In the past and in some places, they've been able to, and maybe in some places they still can. But in the Western world, in the modern Western world, that time is dead and gone. You people have already lost. Your religion is going the way of the dodo. Maybe it's time for you to grow up and deal with it.
Where does that moral judgment come from? I think we all know that if God does not exist, then there's no reason, there's no way that we can ground any sort of objective morality.
But there is no objective morality. The fact that you really want there to be doesn't mean that there is. This is something that a lot of people have a problem with, but that doesn't matter, does it? You live in the world that you actually live in, not the world that you desperately wish that you did. He is doing absolutely everything wrong that most apologists are doing as well. He assumes that everything he already believes is true, whether that's the case or not, because he's been indoctrinated into it, and he's not rational enough to take that giant step backwards and reevaluate his existing beliefs in the damning light of reality. I did that. I was there. I didn't want to stop being a Christian. But the second that I realized that Christianity wasn't demonstrably true, in fact it was anything but, I just couldn't do it. I was more attached to reality than I was to the religion. And people like this guy, they're not. They're just not. They just really want to believe, and it's sad to watch them flounder around and act like idiots because they can't come to grips with the world that they actually live in. They don't want to live there. They want to live in a fantasy land in their head because reality terrifies them. Well, guess what? It's not going to go away. Maybe they should figure that out. Maybe they should learn to adapt. This is where we're going to stop for the day, and this is going to go on for a couple of videos, so be ready for that. What do you think so far? Let me know down in the comments. I honestly don't get people like this. I know why they do what they do. I don't know how they can be this stupid as to want to do it, but I do understand why they're doing it. And I guess it takes all kinds, but I'm very happy that I am nothing at all like that. Not anymore. Once I got the religious mind poison flushed out of my system, I was so much happier and so much more rational. I have a much better life now than I ever did when I was religious. And they could do it too, but they don't want to. How pathetic is that?